Welcome to No Ordinary Woman, where we recognise and celebrate women of all ages and all stages. This week is Perinatal Anxiety and Depression Awareness Week. So I just wanted to do a special segment around just some of the signs and symptoms, and as well as share my own experience with it as well. So it's a very, very important thing for new parents to have a really good understanding of before they go into having babies, just so you know what to watch out for. So this is really just some education around the perinatal depression and anxiety possibilities. It doesn't happen to everybody, but statistically 1 in 5 mothers experiences some level of it. And also, I think around 1 in 10, I'll fact check that, but non-birth parents as well. So it's really important to have a bit of an understanding. So I thought I would just share a little bit about my experience. Now, it was 26 odd years ago when I had my first child, and it was not as well known as it is now. And I think it even needs to be a little bit more well known. But I went into having my first child with grand expectations. I was going to do a really good job. I had everything all mapped out. I had never had any experience of mental health problems in the past, and that's a really important thing to note. It's not. It has no discrimination, this illness. And a few weeks after having my baby, I had a few different complications physically. And a few weeks after having my baby, I just could not get on top of things. I was, I know that there's the baby blues, but it just kept getting worse. I had, I was crying all the time. I couldn't concentrate. I had no interest in anything. All I could do was take care of this baby, and I wasn't even doing that as well as I thought I would have, because I just didn't have any energy or enthusiasm. And I started to think, all right, well, it's just because I'm sleep deprived, or I haven't eaten, or maybe I'm just crap at this. And I really started questioning myself, because I just couldn't seem to get on top of being able to do this. And then I started thinking, why does everybody else seem to be coping? And I was going to mother's group and everybody just looked happy and normal. And it's like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And I really started to question, maybe it was just me. And I had no idea what perinatal depression and anxiety was. And I went to my GP after a while, because who wants to admit that they're not coping? I didn't. I was a control freak, self-confessed. And I just didn't, I couldn't bring myself to go, hey, I'm not managing this, because I had been able to manage everything that I put my mind to up to that point, and I just couldn't work my head around it. So I went to my GP when it just started to get really, beyond ridiculous. It was a few weeks in. It was more of a couple of months in, actually. And I told my GP, who had been taking care of me throughout my pregnancy, about my symptoms. I said, I'm crying all the time. I can't sleep. I'm really anxious. And, I've just lost interest in anything. I'm scared to go out of the house. I know I can go. I don't even want to put the baby in a pram and go out of the house. And everything annoys me. And the husband, the baby's father that I was happy with before the baby came along just irritated me. And I just don't know what's wrong with me. And this is I had to build up all my courage that I had to go to this GP and basically admit that I was failing. And I wasn't failing. That was just how I felt. And just tell him all of these things that were going on. And my GP just looked at me and took a deep breath and went, aren't all women like that? And in that moment, I just felt shattered, and I'm like, I was so embarrassed. I was absolutely soul destroyed, and I just went home just thinking I am rubbish. And I just let it go. I thought, no, suck it up, get it together, just keep going. Incidentally, my mum was with me at that appointment, and I swear I could just see her almost dive across the desk at the doctor and nearly wring his little neck. So number one, first you need to find someone if you are experiencing symptoms, or, and if you just don't feel quite right, find somebody that will give you empathy and understanding and validation and care that you need. I did not get it in that moment, and it didn't occur to me because I was so shattered. I just went, radio, I'll just get on with it. So I went and kept trying to get on with it. And fortunately, I had an amazing maternal and child health nurse who picked up on the changes she saw in me from the time of my first visit to a few months down the track. And she just said to me, Fiona, I'm really concerned. I think you might have postnatal depression, which what it was called back in those days. Now it's perinatal because it covers the entire perinatal period. And I looked at her and went, Mum, I think you're crazy, because I've never had any mental health problems in the past. I was, a hairdresser, managing a hairdressing salon, singing in a band. I don't have depression. I don't have anxiety. I've never been scared to do anything in my life. But what had happened is because of the onset of perinatal depression, all of these things had started happening. And I just didn't want to admit it. I just couldn't for the life of me wrap my head around that would happen to me, because I just didn't know enough about it. So eventually I let it go, and it got to the point where I just literally couldn't function on a day-to-day basis. I would look at one of those magic cook in the pot 4-step boxes, and I couldn't work out how to do those 4 steps. I couldn't get my head around it. I was, either anxious and scared all the time, or I was crying all the time. And it even got to the point where I was I had it quite severe by the time I sought medical help, but I was scared to go out, and I had paranoia, and I was just experiencing a whole heap of different things that were just not typical of my normal everyday. So eventually I got to the point where it was taken out of my control, and my maternal and child health nurse, I had to admit defeat, which it wasn't defeat, let's just make sure that's clear, sent me to a psychiatrist, and she put me straight in hospital. I was at that point where the do not pass go, do not collect $200, you're going straight to hospital. And that is where I received the care that I needed at that time, because it had gone so long. It got worse and worse and worse and worse, left untreated and unsupported. So the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because it's really important to understand the signs and symptoms for early intervention. Had I have not gotten, aren't all women like that, and had have gotten some support and care at the beginning, it would have, more likely been a different story. So I just want to make that really, really clear that early intervention is key. And having this happen is not a reflection on you or anything about you. It's just, it is non-discriminatory. It can hit anybody, and it hits a lot of women. So that was my experience. I then ended up getting some really great care in hospital, but I was very, very severe. And I guess, again, it's important to understand that it can come in all different varieties. So it can be very mild. It can feel like an extension of the baby blues, or it can be very severe up to psychosis. And I was right up to borderline. At that stage, I was classed as very severe. So it took a good 3 months of treatment and hospitalization. They let me go after about 6 weeks, and I didn't manage, so they put me right back again. But the good news is you recover from perinatal depression and anxiety, and I did recover. I did get better, and I even went back for a second baby. But it's not a laughing matter, but it is something that we just need to have a really good understanding of. Know that it's not us, and know that there is treatment, there is care, there are resources, and you will absolutely recover from it. So just a couple of things to point out is that some people think it's just just your hormones after you have a baby. Well, it's not, because non-birth parents also experience postnatal depression as well. And that's really important. And it's what they call at PANDA, which is one of the best resources in Australia for perinatal depression and anxiety support. PANDA. I'm going to leave a link to that in the description below. they describe it as a biopsychosocial illness. So there are biological factors that contribute to it, your hormones and your physical health. There's psychological factors, so biopsycho is psychological, which can be pre-existing things that might be going on for you that you don't even know about, just lying dormant, waiting to rear their ugly head. And then there's the social aspect to it as well. So have you got a good social support network? Do you have people around you that you can call on? And that was a thing, like with myself, there was bio, psycho, and social all combined into one thing. There was a lot of underlying stuff that came out. I didn't really have a good social support network because I was in, my parents lived far away, and my friends, I didn't really have a lot of friends close by. So I was kind of doing it all on my own. So that's a really important thing to understand. It's not you. You are not failing. There's a lot of contributing factors to this illness. So that's the thing. And I just wanted to, while I've got you here, is just to share a couple of other contributing factors, which is from the PANDA pamphlet that you'll find in the link below. Contributing factors can be a history of anxiety and depression. I had neither. But if you do, then, it might be worth setting up a support network around you. Family history of mental illness, previous reproductive loss, difficult or complex pregnancy or birth. I had both. Premature or sick baby, challenges with feeding and settling, tick. Sleep deprivation, pre-existing illness, even financial stress, relationship stress, other things. Now, just because these might be there doesn't mean you are going to get PNDA as well. It's just that they can be some of the contributing factors. It's important to be aware, alert, not alarmed. It's one of those things. And again, early intervention is really key and support is really key. But some of the signs and symptoms, which I think is really important, because whether you are a new parent yourself or whether you know someone who is a new parent, or, in the future, these are really important things to know so that you can pick it up early. So apart from what feels like the lingering effects of the baby blues, are things like feeling sad, low, or crying for no obvious reason. Persistent generalized worry, often focused on fears for the health or well-being of your baby. Being nervous, edgy, or panicky. Oh man, was I nervous, edgy, and panicky. Being easily annoyed or irritated. Withdrawing from friends and family, sleeping too much or not sleeping well at all, abrupt mood swings, feeling constantly tired and lacking energy, having little or no interest in things that normally you would get excited about, fear of being alone, or even fear of being with others. I could not handle being in a room full of people at that time. Even close family members was just like, get away from me and get away from my baby. It was really weird. Finding it difficult to focus, concentrate, or remember, so brain fog, losing interest in intimacy, increased alcohol or drug use, panic attacks, racing heart, palpitations, shortness of breath, feeling physically detached from your surroundings, and developing obsessive or compulsive behaviors. And then in more severe cases, even suicidal thoughts. So it's really important to know that these are the common symptoms of perinatal depression and anxiety, so we can pick it up either in ourselves or in others around us as well. It's a very real and present illness. It's not a reflection on who you are or anything else about you. It is a very non-discriminatory, I did not expect to have it. I didn't believe that it was possible that I would have it, but there it was. I had it. I recovered from it, and it is something that with the right support and the right care and resources, you absolutely can get on top of it. And remember, just because these are some of the signs and symptoms, it doesn't mean you get all of them. It might just be one or two things, and we can experience those symptoms on and off at any given time. Like, just because you have that today or for a couple of days doesn't mean that you necessarily have an illness, but it's when it goes on consistently for days. And they say with PANDA, for a diagnosis, they usually say consistently for 2 weeks or more every day. But that's a thing you've got to be really careful, not diagnose yourself, not to let anyone but a health professional diagnose you. These are some of the things to watch out for. There might be one or more of those things. And if you do go and seek professional help, if you don't like the answer the first person's giving you, and you know yourself or you know the person that you're caring for, whether it's a friend or family member, you know what's different about them. So seek help. And PANDA is a great resource even for grandparents or non-birth parents or friends to call up and say, hey, I've got this friend and I'm not quite sure what to do. The support workers will actually talk you through and help you to go through some steps with that person to help care for them as well. So it's a really important resource to know is available. And why do I know so much about it? I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning. I was trained as a telephone support worker because they have a peer support system. So it's women and men who have had experience with PNDA in the past, or health professionals, but mostly people with an experience of it, to support the person making the calls. I had the training, but I had the training with the intent to go and be a community education volunteer, because I said, I'm not a listener, I'm a speaker. And so I ended up spending about 3 or 4 years doing community education and talking to new parents, talking to midwives and maternal and child health services to just spread some education about perinatal health. So those are the important things that I wanted to cover with you. I will leave a link to some resources in the description. If you've watched this video and it's raised anything for you, please reach out to support services. There's PANDA, there's Beyond Blue, there's Lifeline. All the links will be in the description. So don't go through this alone. There are people out there to help you. There are people out there to support you. This isn't all in your head, and there is nothing. You are not failing. That was one of the things I thought, oh my God, I'm failing. No, you're not. It's an illness. It's not like you wouldn't be failing if you had diabetes. You wouldn't be failing if you had a heart condition. You are not failing if you have PNDA. It is something that is outside of your control, and you are okay, and you will be okay. So I think, it's for this week being Perinatal Anxiety and Depression Awareness. Please, if you see anything that you can share, and if you know any new parents or people that are about to become new parents, please share this video with them and anybody who could be a really good support person for new parents. So thank you so much for watching. If you've got any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'm more than happy to answer them. If you want to email me, there's a link to my website on the YouTube channel as well. But I thank you so much for joining me and for watching, and I will see you next time for No Ordinary Woman. Bye for now.